Alright guys, we made it to part 4 of the 5-part series on muscle ups. So far we've covered a primer video, going over basic positions. We've done pulling strength, we've done dip strength and stability on the rings. In this video we're going to talk about turnover and some drills to help you in that turnover. This is by far where I see the most people fail on muscle ups. It's a big mental hurdle as well, but physically I just don't think a lot of people know where to go once they get above the rings. So we see a lot of people kind of pulling through like it's a pull-up and not trying to get over and in that dip position to get out of the muscle up. Part of that is being comfortable. So if you have done your paused ring dips and you've worked on that strength and stability on the rings, that's going to help you a ton. If you only have one ring dip and you try to do a muscle up, you're not going to be very confident in getting out of that or to turn over and sit in that position until you're stable. So focus here is going to be turnover, and we're going to go over some basic drills that you can do. These kind of build off of each other, so we're going to start with the most basic. The first one is the proximal ring pull through. Now this works on proximal strength, which means keeping the rings close to you the entire time. You're going to start this kind of like your ring rows. I would use the false grip for sure, so you get used to doing that. And to perform these, you're going to get set up sort of like a ring row, except you're going to be standing with straight legs and you're going to be back at an angle. We're going to slowly trace those rings across your chest, down through your sternum, towards your armpits, until we can get in front of the rings and lean over. Then once you've achieved that, you're going to go in the opposite direction. Work back towards the middle of the chest and back up into your starting position. This is a great drill, so get used to doing this because you're definitely going to use that proximal strength when it's time to get up and over those rings. The second is a toenail muscle up. So on this one, you're going to be kneeling down to start. I would have the rings about head height, maybe just above, and we're basically going to just get up on your toenails. So you're using the top of your foot rather than being on your toes like you normally would. And we're going to be in a position where you don't have a lot of help from your legs, but you're in a nice straight position. Use your false grip, use that starting position, and then you're going to pull up and over just like you would in a strict muscle up. So you have minimal help from your feet, but it helps get you in that position and get used to pulling all the way through. The next is one of my favorites, the jumping muscle up. I've used this with a lot of different members of ours, and it seems to really help with somebody who's not totally comfortable with getting that turnover. They may have all the strength in the world, but they don't have the technique or the confidence to get up and over the rings, which is what we have to do, right? So the jumping muscle up, I would start with the rings at just the top of your head. So it's nice and high, but enough to where you could jump into position. We're gonna start with that active position so that you're ready to turn over. We're gonna use your false grip already. And we're gonna just use a little jump so we're getting used to extending the hips and then going into the turnover. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes, why that's important. We'll go ahead and set up on the rings. We're gonna jump and then quickly turn over into the bottom of the dip. You can also use this to get used to dipping out of that bottom position, but the main goal on the jumping muscle up is to get the rings in position to where you can successfully dip without them going out to the side or possibly hurting your shoulders. So this is a good sub if you have muscle ups in the WOD and you're not quite there yet. Do the jumping muscle up, maybe add a couple reps so that you get used to it, but just drilling that over and over is gonna yield some really, really good results. The final drill for your turnover is gonna be the seated banded strict muscle up. We're gonna use a light resistance band on this one because you don't want too much assistance. You could start with a little heavier band and then go lighter as you get comfortable with it, but ultimately you want the least amount of help that we can get on this one, so you're really working the strength and the turnover. We're gonna set the band around the rings, and then you're gonna put on your false grip, so you're gonna be holding that over the band. We're gonna get into a seated position. I want you slightly reclined so that your eyes can look up at the rings, and your legs will be straight out in front of you, toes pointed, feet together. You're gonna quickly do a pull-up into your ribs, so we're going for that deep ring pull-up so that you can get on top of the rings by performing the fastest sit-up you've ever done. So as soon as you pulled up and you got that momentum, we're gonna turn over, get your shoulder on top of the ring, and then from there you can dip out. Or you can choose to just drill that turnover and not worry about dipping out of it if you know your dip strength is already not a weakness for you. So I'd perform this in sets of 3 to 5, whatever you can handle. And it's gonna really, really help your strict turnover and get you used to that. Once you have that strength, we're gonna get the hips a little more incorporated. And that's gonna be a big part of your kipping ring muscle up, is using the hips at the appropriate time and really fully opening your hip to get the momentum and the power to get over the rings. I only have one drill for this, and it's my favorite one. It's the box hip thrust. So I get set up to where you're holding the rings, again, at about ring row height, maybe a little bit higher. Your arms are gonna be straight. Your legs are gonna be straight out in front of you and heels on a box. You don't want your whole foot or your leg touching it, just keep your heels on the box. We're gonna let your hips sag all the way towards the ground, and then quickly we're gonna thrust them all the way up. And then they're gonna go back down. We're gonna repeat that over and over again. So it just gets you used to that really powerful hip thrust that's gonna open up your hip completely, and that's what you're gonna have to do at the top of the ring. So definitely get used to that, and that's gonna help you with that turnover when the time comes to put it all together, which is in next video.